Imagine stepping into a centuries-old church. The air is heavy with the smell of incense. Sunlight filters through stained glass windows, and everywhere you look, saints gaze back at you. Some hold strange objects, others wear unusual clothing, and nearly all of them seem to hide secrets in plain sight. These images weren't random artistic choices. They were codes, symbols that carried powerful meanings for believers across generations. Today, we're unlocking those secrets, the hidden iconography of saints. When you walk through a cathedral in Europe, like Notre Dame in Paris, St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, or even a small countryside church in Spain, you're surrounded by religious art that was designed not just to decorate, but to teach. Remember, for centuries most people couldn't read. Paintings, sculptures, and stained glass weren't just beautiful. They were Bibles in color. Every detail mattered. A sword, a lily, a set of keys, a wheel, even the way a saint holds their hand. These were messages, reminders of who they were, what they stood for, and how they lived or died. Take St. Peter, for example. You'll almost always find him with keys in his hand. Why keys? Because according to tradition, Jesus gave Peter the keys to the kingdom of heaven. In Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel or in the mosaics of Ravenna, Peter is holding those keys as a sign of authority and faith. So whenever medieval Christians saw keys, they instantly thought, Peter. Not just a man, but the rock of the early church. Or think about St. Catherine of Alexandria. She's one of the most fascinating saints of the early church, a philosopher who supposedly debated pagan scholars and won. Her symbol? A wheel. But not just any wheel. The spiked torture wheel that was meant to kill her but miraculously broke apart. So if you see a painting with a young woman beside a shattered wheel, you've just uncovered Catherine's secret icon. Her image became so popular that the Catherine wheel firework was even named after her. And what about Saint Sebastian? He appears in Renaissance art over and over, his body pierced with arrows. If you've seen Guido Reni's haunting depiction in Rome's Capitoline museums, you'll know the image. Pale skin, bound to a tree, arrows piercing him like a human pincushion. It's disturbing, yet strangely serene. Why arrows? Because Sebastian was a Roman soldier who converted to Christianity and was condemned to death by arrows. The symbol is his suffering, but also his endurance. He survived the arrows, only to be martyred later. That resilience made him a protector against the plague, since arrows were seen as a metaphor for sudden disease. What makes all this so powerful is that these images weren't explained with captions. People in medieval Florence or Gothic Cologne didn't need a guidebook. They knew the code. They grew up seeing it, learning it in sermons, hearing it in hymns. Religious art was a universal language, understood across countries and even across centuries. But sometimes the symbolism gets tricky. For example, St. Lawrence is usually shown with a grill, like a barbecue rack. Why? Because according to legend, he was martyred by being roasted alive. It's a horrific story, but in art, the grill becomes his symbol of faith. In San Lorenzo in Rome, one of the city's oldest basilicas, you can even see relics of the actual gridiron associated with him. Without knowing the story, a visitor might just wonder, why is this guy holding a kitchen tool? But to medieval eyes, the meaning was crystal clear. Other saints are shown with animals, which can look almost whimsical until you know the symbolism. Saint Jerome, for instance, is often painted with the lion. Walk into the church of Saint Jerome in Rome, and you'll see paintings where he's calmly writing, while a lion rests at his feet. The story goes that Jerome pulled a thorn from the lion's paw, and the animal became his lifelong companion. But symbolically, the lion also represents Jerome's strength and his fierce intellect as the translator of the Bible into Latin, the famous Vulgate. And then there's Saint Francis of Assisi, often surrounded by birds. Giotto's frescoes in Assisi show him preaching to flocks of birds, a sign of his deep connection to nature. This isn't just sweet imagery. It's symbolism of Francis's belief that all creation reflects God. That's why even today, you'll see statues of Francis in gardens, blessing the animals. One of the most striking uses of iconography is how saints' martyrdoms are represented. These symbols are often gruesome, but they carried a deep message of courage and faith. Saint Lucy, for instance, is sometimes shown holding her own eyes on a plate. Disturbing? Absolutely. But it refers to her torture, when her eyes were gouged out. Yet it also symbolizes her inner vision, her unshakable spiritual sight. In Venice, at the Church of Santa Lucia, pilgrims once prayed before her relics, believing she could protect their eyesight. Saint Bartholomew is another shocking example. In Michelangelo's Last Judgment in the Sistine Chapel, Bartholomew is painted holding his own skin because he was flayed alive. That gruesome symbol became his identifier, a reminder of his sacrifice. To modern viewers, it looks macabre, but to believers of the time, it was a testimony of unwavering faith. So why all this hidden symbolism? Because iconography wasn't just about art, it was about memory. These were visual mnemonics, teaching tools that told the faithful, here's who this person was, here's why they matter. For a farmer in medieval France or a merchant in Renaissance Venice, these images were a way to feel connected to something greater, to the stories of those who lived and died for their faith. Sometimes the symbolism even carried warnings. Saint Christopher, for example, is often depicted carrying the Christ child across a river. His name literally means Christ-bearer. In medieval times, it was believed that if you saw an image of Christopher in the morning, you wouldn't die that day. That's why so many churches placed his statue near the entrance. It wasn't just art. It was a daily shield against fear. But iconography also crossed cultures and evolved over time. In Eastern Orthodox churches, saints are portrayed in icons with stylized features, large eyes for spiritual vision, elongated fingers for blessing, golden backgrounds for divine light. Compare that to the dramatic realism of Caravaggio in Rome, where saints appear as ordinary people with dirt under their fingernails and wrinkles on their faces. Same saints, different symbolic language. And let's not forget, some symbols became universal. The palm branch, for instance, is a classic sign of martyrdom. If you see a saint with a palm, it means they remained steadfast to the end. Or the book, often shown with scholars like Augustine or Aquinas, symbolizing wisdom. The lily, purity, most famously associated with the Virgin Mary, but also with saints like Joseph. The beauty of this secret iconography is that once you learn it, churches become treasure maps. Every statue, every stained glass window, every fresco becomes a puzzle waiting to be solved. You're no longer just admiring the art, you're reading it. You can step into Chartres Cathedral in France, or Santa Maria Novella in Florence, or Westminster Abbey in London, and suddenly the saints are speaking to you across the centuries. So the next time you step into a church, slow down. Look closely. Is that a woman with a broken wheel? Catherine. A man with keys? Peter. Someone holding a lamb? That's usually John the Baptist, pointing to Christ as the Lamb of God. A man with a shell? Probably St. James the Pilgrim, patron of the Camino de Santiago. Once you know the code, the walls themselves become alive with meaning. Hidden symbolism in religious art is a reminder that faith wasn't only preached, it was painted, carved, and stained into stone and glass. The saints weren't distant figures, they were present, their stories woven into every corner of sacred space. And for believers, recognizing them wasn't just about knowledge, it was about connection, a way of saying, these are our heroes, their courage inspires us still. So as we've seen, the iconography of saints is more than decoration. It's a secret language, one that transformed cathedrals into teaching tools and art into devotion. From Peter's keys to Catherine's wheel, from Sebastian's arrows to Lucy's eyes, each symbol is a window into a story, a faith, and a history that continues to shape the world today. And now that you know some of the secrets, the next time you walk into a church, you won't just see art. You'll see a hidden conversation across time, one that invites you to look deeper, to understand more, and maybe even to believe.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. Feel free to share it with a friend who loves a good mystery. And if you haven't already, please subscribe so you won't miss the next story. There's a lot more to uncover, and I'd love to have you along for the journey.